Councillor Brown, I can confirm the live stream is now on.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone to the all-member briefing on Connecting Cornwall. This is the first one that we're doing. Apologies, Sarah, I've got a slight problem. My screen is frozen at the moment.
Councillor Brown, we can still hear you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. So this is the first all-member briefing where we're reflecting on the success we've had over the last 4 years on the Council's priorities, which, if you recall, we agreed back in June 2017 at the start of this administration. And as we approach the end of the 4-year administration, it feels appropriate to reflect on the journey as the priorities are the commitments we made to the people of Cornwall. That's why these all-member briefings are being public-faced. So I would like to extend a warm welcome to any viewers from outside the Council who may be watching. In addition to reporting on progress, these sessions will also reflect on the impact of the pandemic and the opportunities that we need to grasp to help deliver our 2050 vision, together with some of the more immediate steps being taken in the 21-22 budget. So if we can move to slide 2, Sarah. When setting the 5 priorities for Cornwall, we recognised one of the key challenges and areas for improvement is around connectivity. The previous administration made great strides, helped enormously by the 2015 Cornwall devolution deal, which made it possible for the aim of creating an integrated public transport system. Fast forward 5 years, we've delivered on that aim, with Transport for Cornwall in place and Cornwall unquestionably better connected than it was in 2017. So just to reaffirm, having listened to the public on the doorstep and through more formal engagement, our Connecting Cornwall priority was all about making effective connections, including all forms of transport and the internet. Those connections are within Cornwall and across the globe, and even beyond, with ambitions to host the first spaceport in Europe. Slide 3. Our priorities for 2017 to 2022 are improved sea, road, rail, air and bus networks, working with our partners. Give communities more influence over funding to improve roads. Create an integrated transport system linking mainline bus and rail timetables, ferry and Cornwall Newquay Airport, and integrating the branch lines on the railway into the main line. Provide better broadband and mobile connectivity for businesses and people across the county. Our success measures are the number of passenger journeys in Cornwall across all modes of transport, bus, rail, air and ferry, percentage of reported potholes, the other category 1 highway defects repaired within 48 hours for urban roads and 72 hours for rural roads, and the number of premises with superfast broadband. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by Phil Mason and the team from Transport, and they've risen to the challenge and will now go on to the presentation, which is slide 4. I'm really pleased that the first of these sessions is focused on Connecting Cornwall, and that I have the opportunity to share with you some of the successes over the last 4 years. The timeline captures just a few of our achievements during the time. Investment in key transport initiatives which will make a real difference to our community and economy. What strikes me about the timeline is the range of achievements, starting with our response to the devastating flash floods in Cornwall, which saw highway crews reconstruct the village's main roads within just 6 days after the incident. I'd only been in post for about 8 days and got home after a long day of meetings late in the evening to get a call from Adam Painter to say, "Are you aware of what's happened in Cornwall?" And I wasn't, so he updated me, and we agreed to meet at 7 o'clock in the morning down at Cornwall. He got there slightly before I did, and I can recall now him ringing me up and saying, "There's no need to rush down because you haven't got any roads left." And when I did arrive, it looked like an earthquake zone. And we gave a commitment to the people of Cornwall at the time that we wouldn't leave until we got them back on a safe footing. And 7 days later, I was down there on a Sunday morning when Cormac were white lining the newly resurfaced roads, a phenomenal achievement. We've also continued to work on an investment of some £340 of capital investment, much of which was match funded to leverage greater amounts of money, plus many more millions of revenue funding to deliver our Connecting Cornwall priorities. Next slide, please. As you can see from this map, we have improved our universal services, such as repairing potholes, despite the fact that we've had the COVID-19, and over the Christmas period, Cormac were out on the roads every day over Christmas, responding to urgent safety issues and continuing to make sure that our highways are safe for residents. We have super fast broadband coverage is currently showing about 93% of passenger and we've got 93% of passenger satisfaction rate with local bus services. We've also made capital investment across Cornwall, especially in our ageing road network, completing the dualling of the A30 between Temple and Higher Carblake. Now looking forward to the next section, which is between Carlin Cross and Chiverton, and making the Chiverton roundabout much safer. And we're also, I'm delighted to say, we've just approved the Cornwall Council funding element of the Atlantic Highway Road bypass at Camelford. And that is actually the only major road network scheme which Cornwall has going through the Subnational Transport Board. So great success there. All these schemes make a huge difference to residents, businesses and visitors, improving traffic flows, road safety, as well as having a significant benefit on air quality. One of the key beneficiaries is the economy, and we work closely with the LEP, with Mark Dudridge, welcoming the St Austell Link Road as another critical piece of infrastructure that will hugely improve connectivity in mid-Cornwall. Next slide. I want to highlight 4 specific achievements that link directly back to the original aims and success measures. So I'm going to focus on the new rail depot at Long Rock, our groundbreaking One Public Transport system, Cornwall's first new multi-modal transport hub, and finally our new bus service contract. Next slide. Completion of enhanced rail facilities at Long Rock Depot. The facility at Long Rock Depot is a great example of the successful partnership between Cornwall Council, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, the Department for Transport, Great Western Rail and Network Rail. And I'm pleased to say that at a meeting yesterday, Network Rail stated that Cornwall is the biggest single investor in rail infrastructure in the whole country in terms of being a local authority. And we have a fantastic partnership with Great Western Rail. The jointly funded £15.4 million project saw upgrades made to the depot to accommodate the relocation of heavy maintenance rail operations from Reading to Long Rock. The depot provides additional facilities to support mainline services, including the upgrade of the Knights Riviera sleeper service, and more importantly, it's actually provided a huge number of well-paid jobs in the west of Cornwall and opportunities for apprenticeships to develop for our young people. Next slide, please. The upgrade and expanded Long Rock Depot facility has also created the capacity to support the increased frequency of services on the Cornwall Main Line and new intercity express trains. Provided improved facilities for staff, which includes 22 additional jobs, safeguarding 64 existing jobs and the training opportunities that go with it. It's improved the visual appearance of the depot and the surrounding area. The project was practically completed in November 2017, with final works finished in the spring of 2018. It was completed on time and on budget. I'm really pleased to say that, because the movement from the existing depot in Reading enabled the HS2 to start on time. Without doubt, the creation of the One Public Transport System has been one of the standout achievements of the Council over the past 4 years. But I would say that, wouldn't I? With the catalyst being the Cornwall devolution deal agreed with the government in 2015. 5 years on, we now have Transport for Cornwall, delivering our vision for a high-quality, integrated and customer-focused public transport network. The integration extends to buses, ferries and rail. A key aspect of this is Cornwall's rail network. The work we have done over the last 4 years with Great Western Rail and Network Rail has led to a £400 million package of rail investment for Cornwall, transforming rail services onto our main line. This has seen new rolling stock introduced on the Cornwall main line, as well as a new sleeper service, sleeper lounges at Penzance, Truro and Paddington. The most transformation work, though, has been to enhance the rail signalling along the main line. And I'm delighted to say that we've been assured that they've also secured additional funding for Network Rail to further enhance the signalling on the main line in the next period of funding up to 2023, which will eventually enable us to run a mid-Cornwall metro service across from Newquay to Falmouth. Next slide, please. Good connectivity is vital to the growth of Cornwall's economy. We've contributed funding to Network Rail's £25 million Cornwall Capacity Enabling Scheme, upgrading signals along the network. Installing the new state-of-the-art signals on the Cornish main line meant that Great Western Rail could introduce a half-hourly service between Penzance and Plymouth. Prior to the coronavirus pandemic, it meant that there were more than 4,000 extra seats every day for passengers travelling between Penzance and Plymouth, and a reliable service which connected to the buses and the branch lines. Upgrades have also been made to 7 level crossings in the area, installing the latest technology to provide improved safety. New signals are now controlled locally from the existing signal boxes at Plymouth, Lostwithiel and Rosgear. This work improves the reliability of the rail infrastructure. Funding has also been secured, as I said, to upgrade further to digitalise much of the signalling on the main line up until 2023. Next slide. We've also developed our first multi-modal transport hub at St Earth, which is an example of how Transport for Cornwall works in practice. The scheme has been developed in partnership with Network Rail, GWR and Highways England, and reduces traffic congestion and delays on the A30 by joining together rail, bus, walking and cycling facilities, and encourage more people to travel by public transport and improve road safety on that stretch of the road. Opened in June 2019, the hub connects the main line through Cornwall with the A30, the St Ives Rail Park and Ride with 516 parking spaces and the wider bus network. Next slide, please. The new bus stop and bus turning areas make it easier for passengers to travel to and from the station, an important link to the increased rail services which began in May 2019. We now have pedestrian crossings and an improved footway between the stations and the village of St Earth, and those who want to cycle to the station can benefit from the enhanced cycling facilities. The project has improved the station forecourt, providing direct access to the North Car Park, disabled parking facilities and a passenger pick-up and drop-off area. And since opening, there's been a 34% increase in passenger numbers over previous years, and a huge improvement also on the passenger numbers on the branch line. And that's been improved also by the enhancement of the platform facilities at St Earth. Currently, Network Rail are investing a significant amount of money in upgrading the track bed on the branch line between St Ives and St Earth. Next slide, please. New ambitious 8-year contract awarded for local bus services and Truro Park and Ride. Cornwall Council awarded a new 8-year contract for Truro Park and Ride and over 70 local supported bus routes in January 2020. Journeys that are essential to local residents, but not commercially viable. Awarding both contracts for 8 years will allow long-term relationships to develop with the operators to provide customer-focused services that encourage passenger growth and modal shift to help meet Cornwall's climate change challenge. Local bus services were awarded to Go Cornwall Bus, Plymouth City Bus, providing new services and improvements to existing routes, including direct links to Derford Hospital from Cornwall and Launceston to Bodmin Town Centre and the Bodmin Parkway Railway Station. Issues which residents have been asking for a long time. We listened and we've delivered. Next slide, please. The new contracts cover half of the local bus network in Cornwall and has improved connections between bus and rail, including a twice-hourly service between Penzance and Plymouth. As a result of the contract, Cornwall now has 92 Euro 6 buses, the latest generation of cleaner diesel buses. I've been asked why we didn't go for electric. The simple answer is, at the moment, in the rural nature of Cornwall, there isn't the capacity within the electric bus network to cover the range of journeys which our buses undertake on a daily basis. We will continue to look at electric vehicles and if its opportunity presents itself, then we will move to electric buses, but at the moment we're using Euro 6 buses, the cleanest diesel engines available. Cornwall Council and Go Bus have ensured that tender services have been maintained through the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure services in place for essential workers, and also that we've provided consistent school transport to ensure our young people get to school, where they're particularly children of key workers. That's important, and I pay tribute to the staff of Go Cornwall who have continued to provide that service through the pandemic, despite the challenges they've had in terms of staff who've also been affected by the virus. The award of the Truro Park and Ride contract to First Kernow includes options to extend evening services and to add new provision on Sundays. These will be reviewed after the COVID-19 recovery, and I'm conscious of this important position that the Park and Ride can play in supporting our wonderful NHS staff working at Treliske Hospital. First Kernow has provided invaluable additional capacity at Truro Park and Ride to ensure social distancing can be maintained during the pandemic. Next slide, please. And this is a quote from Richard Stevens, the Managing Director of Go Cornwall Bus, who says, "We're delighted and privileged to be awarded this significant contract by Cornwall Council. We believe that working in partnership will enhance customers' experience, improve opportunity to travel, and improve air quality across the Duchy. Go Cornwall Bus prides itself on being a good community partner. Through this expansion, we're looking forward to working with people across the length and breadth of the county." And I would pay tribute to the work they've done already in terms of opening up contact centres for information for travellers, responding to concerns and complaints where they've got a one-stop response, which is excellent, and really looking forward to working with them post the pandemic to improve passenger numbers on the bus service. Next slide, please. I wanted to give an example of how we've listened, how we've lived the council's values through the Connecting Cornwall priority. Namely, we've listened, we're responsible, we act in the best interests of Cornwall. Our focus on repairing potholes shows that we've done just that. In 2017, when asked one thing the council should improve, residents said better, more improved roads came out top. The saying prevention is better than cure is appropriate here. We need to invest in our road network to prevent the deterioration that causes highway defects such as potholes. We need investment at national level to support our highway network. We've demonstrated that investment can make a difference. We committed an additional £20 million to be spent on Cornwall's roads by the end of this year. So far, this funding has seen more than 500 roads resurfaced, improving safety and preventing an estimated 2,400 potholes from forming in the first place. Apologies, I've got a low battery. I think that's put that right. Potholes continue to thrive, however, and we work hard to repair them. The number of potholes repaired within the agreed timescales has actually increased from 95% in 2018 to 99% in 2020, with on average 62 repairs being made a day in 2020. And I mentioned earlier the work that Cormac did through the Christmas period. They repaired approximately 300 pothole repairs and other road safety issues during the 11 days over Christmas, whilst we were all enjoying that Christmas break. It's encouraging to see that the percentage of residents satisfied with road maintenance has increased by 13% between 2017 and 2019. Making the best use of our resources and targeting funds to where it is most needed has meant Cornwall's main A and B roads continue to rank in the top 25% in the country. But we mustn't be complacent. We need to do more work to improve our rural network, which is so important for many of our residents. Next slide, please. Public transport across the country was negatively impacted by the pandemic as passengers responded to the government's advice to limit their journeys. Cornwall saw patronage fall to less than 7% of the previous year's levels during April 2020. Since April, the council has worked with local bus operators to provide an agile network able to respond to national government guidance. We've made sure that the buses are safe in terms of COVID. We've reduced the seating capacity, and particularly on school transport where it's been necessary, we've actually run a duplicate service to make sure that there isn't an overload capacity on single buses. We've done everything possible to make sure that buses are safe to travel on where it's absolutely necessary for operators, for users to do so, including contactless ticketing. And we will continue to work with the bus operators to provide an essential service in the community during the pandemic and during lockdown to ensure that key workers and young people can get to their school or to their work destination safely and reliably. Next slide, please, Sarah. The council has made great strides in connecting Cornwall, and the team have responded incredibly well to deal with the impact of COVID-19. Nevertheless, the pandemic has set us back, particularly in the use of public transport, and the new administration will need to focus on restoring passenger confidence and getting passenger numbers back. It's really important that we drive a modal shift to get people out of cars and onto public transport. We had a hope to introduce a new fares charging scheme in September. That wasn't practical because of the COVID. That's all ready to go, and as soon as we get out of a lockdown and it's safe for people to use public transport again, we'll be looking at encouraging people to get back onto the buses. When asked what had changed since the start of the pandemic, 66% of residents said they had a greater appreciation of green spaces, paths, beaches for daily exercise. When asked about one thing people would like to see change once the pandemic is over, reduced traffic, encouraging public transport, cycling and walking was one of the most mentioned topics. That's why it's really important that we continue to deliver on our cycle network that we're so proud of. 7 in 10 residents will be willing to maintain home working and will reduce travel after the pandemic to benefit the environment. So we need to encourage and take opportunities that present themselves once this pandemic is resolved. Next slide, please. The results of the resident survey and the wider engagement on Cornwall the Cornwall We Want, undertaken last year, and then shaped our vision for 2050. In the context of connecting Cornwall, this means creating a digital revolution for sustainable living, where everyone is digitally included and Cornwall is one of the best connected places in the world. It also means creating thriving places with decent homes, with vibrant towns and villages that are well connected so people can easily access what they need to live, work and play, with twice as many journeys made by green and active travel. Next slide, please. Our budget proposals for 21-22 will see Cornwall Council take a number of initial steps towards delivering that new vision by encouraging more people to use our new transport network, more than doubling the number of electric vehicle charging points across Cornwall, upgrading many miles of Cornwall's road with a number of major improvements, such as the Camphor bypass, the Atlantic Highway, and the new road linking St Austell to the A30. We also want to create the first rural equivalent of a smart city with our Smart Kernel project to replace Cornwall's 55,000 streetlights with low carbon emission LED bulbs, incorporating sensors to give residents real-time information on public transport services, congestion and pollution. And the new LED system can actually be dimmed, switched off, switched on with no impact on the bulb life. The investment already committed to the Saints Trails will create multi-use paths connecting Newquay to Perranporth and St Agnes to Truro, but we need to be much wider. There is also the delivery of a citywide cycling network in Truro and cycling routes across Mounts Bay and the Lou Valley. Much more to do and more to encourage people to get out of the car and onto public transport or onto their bikes, not just to improve air quality, but also to improve the health and well-being of our residents. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Hello. Councillor Brown, it's good to hear meeting producer. You've got a question from Councillor Kenny first in the chat box.
Thank you. I've got nothing in my chat box here, so if you can update me on the questions, that'd be much appreciated. Councillor Kenny.
Right, thanks, Jeff. That was very interesting. Some of which, of course, I've heard it before. I think from my personal perspective, the feedback on the bus services has been absolutely tremendous. But it does seem to be that we're accepting that to run an adequate bus service across Cornwall, we have to take it on the chin that it can't it's not going to be self-funding. It'll be something the council will always have to support. Is that the case?
That's not the case. I mean, the whole philosophy behind the fares pilot and the £23.5 million that the Department for Transport have granted to run that, which we've deferred because of the pandemic, the focus there is to get a modal shift out of cars and onto public transport. So after 4 years, it should be self-financing. But I'm aware that there will always be areas of Cornwall where bus journeys are essential for those people that don't have cars and don't have access to an alternative form of transport to get to work or to get to school. So there are areas where we will continue to need to support those routes because it's essential for the people living in those areas, particularly in the far-flung rural areas of Cornwall.
If you achieve everything you want to achieve, will you then be phasing it out and let commercial operators, because the reason you had to do it was commercial operators couldn't make a success of it?
Certainly, we'll be looking that it's self-financing. The fares pilot will be self-financing after 4 years, but there may be the odd route here and there where we have to continue to subsidise.
Thanks.
Next question from Councillor Dyer.
Thank you. And I do congratulate you on all you've achieved so far, but as you've rightly said, so far, and the work is ongoing, being almost well, totally local. The Truro Park and Ride system is working quite well, but we desperately need 2 more park and ride car parks. We need one on the 3284 somewhere in the Short Lanes End vicinity, and another one at the bottom of Arch Hill on the A39 to cater for the Falmouth traffic coming into Truro. So they are significant costs to be taken care of in the future. The one that made my ears twitch was the buses from Newquay to Falmouth, or the journey from Newquay to Falmouth. And of course, I am trying to be cooperative in the Newquay to Perranporth reinstatement of the cycle path. Far better if it was a reinstatement of that railway track that went from Newquay to Chasewater, because when you get to Chasewater, you are in fact, and you come out of the station, you're on the Devon to Portreath tramway as we locally know it, and that would be another very useful network to set up. But you mentioned Newquay to Perranporth, fine, and then you skipped a distance and went from St Agnes to Truro. Well, you need to complete that journey with respect, or a future administration will have to do, to complete Perranporth to St Agnes as well. Lots to be done. Congratulations on what you have done. I salute you for that. But we're at a pausing point, perhaps, not necessarily a complete stopping point. There's lots more to be done, and I hope you're taking all those things on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer, and I would agree, lots has been done, but there is a huge amount still to do, and it's all work in progress. If I just pick up your points, I'll try and pick them up in some sort of order. The need for more attention for potentially a park and ride from Short Lanes End. We're conscious that the new A30 dualling will create likely to create further traffic through Short Lanes End, and the staff, the team are looking at that area and what we need to do to try and address that. That's work in progress. Arch Hill, that's an interesting one, because if you talk to a number of the Falmouth members, their view is that once the dual carriageway is completed, it's likely that a lot of people who want to access the A30 won't actually use Arch Hill. They'll go through the Bizzo Valley, which will create significant impact on the Bizzo Valley, and that's another area that we need to look at. But potentially a park and ride, it could be a park and rail from Falmouth into Truro, which would preclude the need for people to get into their cars in the first place. I've talked about the Newquay to Falmouth route, and I said the Mid-Cornwall Metro. That's actually a rail connection going from Newquay to Par down to Truro, and then to Falmouth. It's not envisaged. I was talking only yesterday with Network Rail. It's not envisaged that people would use that regularly, probably to commute to work. It's more sort of a hop-on, hop-off facility for people to use, but it connects Newquay to St Austell, to Truro and to Falmouth. And I agree completely, it would be wonderful if we could have reinstated the Chasewater line. I'm actually old enough to have actually travelled on it many years ago. But it's not practical at the moment, certainly not in terms of cost. And I know that Network Rail, their focus at the moment is on enhancing the branch line from Newquay to Par, and the aim is to improve their existing network structure in Cornwall before they look at anything outside of that. And the link between Perranporth and St Agnes yes, that is work to be done, work in progress. We need to link up those two cycle trails so it's then a seamless journey. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Pascoe.
Oh, thank you very much for letting me ask a question. Councillor Brown, you know I was very grateful to you when you listened to my plea from the residents in Liskeard and indeed South East Cornwall about the connectivity to our one and only hospital that is appropriate for us to use. I've heard you mention all sorts of bus routes this morning and all sorts of towns, but for the benefit of the members of the public, who I hope there are some from South East Cornwall that are listening, can you confirm that the Liskeard to Derriford, Liskeard via Saltash and other parts of the South East Cornwall is still ongoing to the Derriford Hospital? And can you also confirm or advise if that will continue after its pilot period and when that will end? Thank you.
Yes, apologies if my phone's going there. Absolutely. That was one of the key additional routes that was requested and that we put in. There's no intention to drop that. Clearly, COVID has had a devastating impact on both the bus and the rail network and the patronage on it, but we're keen to maintain that and if we can to improve it. So you've got my assurance that is there to stay. I realise the importance of it for the people who travel regularly to Derriford Hospital.
Thank you. I was just worried you hadn't mentioned anywhere this side of Bodmin. And don't forget, we are here from South East Cornwall.
I did mention the Lou Valley cycle trail as well.
You did briefly.
Sarah?
Yes, next question is from Councillor Long.
Good afternoon, Jeff. Thank you very much for the
Andrew.
presentation. You'll know where I'm going on this because you were very quick to say that you mentioned the Lou Valley line. I was really disappointed to think it was 28 minutes went in your 30-minute presentation before you mentioned anything in South East Cornwall. And I think that is the real problem we're having here. Whilst you are quite rightly very, very proud of what the administration has done in other parts of Cornwall, what I was really disappointed in the fact, and I think it has been an abject failure of everybody from local council, from Cornwall Council right up to Westminster, the A38 is just as bad as it was before. We've had 12 closures of the A38 now since the 1st of August due to accidents either side of the Tamar Bridge. And whilst it's very good to praise what's being done on the A30 and your work the Cornwall Council have done on the A30, a trunk road, you didn't even mention the A38 until minute 28. And really it's not giving us a great impression that the fact that Cornwall Council is listening to the people of South East Cornwall, if that is how important that road is. I know you are here to looking at the accomplishments of your 4-year administration, but I think what you should be doing is, if we really want to be taken seriously, is looking at the challenges that we haven't dealt with to show that we are going to deal with them. And I think that would have been better to have had that earlier doors rather than the last slide. So could you confirm what is actually happening with the A38 at the moment, as it is the second trunk road that the Highways Authority have in Cornwall? What Cornwall Council are doing to support the major works that need to be done to the A38, and also would support Jane in her comment regarding the contact to Derriford Hospital. For 160,000 people in Cornwall, we don't use Trelisk, we have to use Derriford, and for a small proportion they have to use the North Devon Hospital, so at Barnstable. So could you just let me know, A, what you're doing about the A38, and B, to confirm that we will continue to get connectivity through to Derriford. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, and you're absolutely correct. I was talking about our achievements, and we haven't achieved a great deal of improvement on the A38. Having said that, it is our top priority in terms of strategic road network with Highways England, and we are continuing to press Highways England to deliver on that. They do have a 3-phase plan for improvements, and I will copy that to all members after this briefing. The other issue is I've already committed that we will maintain that link to Derriford, which is so essential for people in South East Cornwall, and we understand that. That's why we introduced it, thanks to the pressure from local members, and well done. And also in terms of the Tamar Bridge, we're continuing to press Highways England. We've now got the support of the Minister to do that, to get the Highways England to support the bridge maintenance ongoing with some regular funding as they actually run their strategic road across our bridge, and to date have not contributed a penny towards that.
And the next question is from Councillor Thomas.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Jeff, thank you for all you're doing, especially good news about the spaceport and the launch. That sounds very interesting. Very sort of quick question there. Do you expect a launch before the G7? They sort of suggest they might have a launch, or is that just aspirational? I'd like to thank Cormac for all their fantastic work in getting the potholes done. I think Cormac are absolutely fantastic, and the way in which they were received, I recall at Coverack, the whole community applauded them as they did their work, and so they are a real fantastic group of people. My concern is that planning have the 50-50 where they're looking at Cornwall in 50 years time, and I wonder if we're not really being aspirational enough with our transport hopes. As you know, the thing that I bang on in this division is the restoration of the Helston line, or reconnection to Network Rail. I realise there's no money for it, but it would be nice if there was some recognition that like with Chasewater, there is some viability in this. And there's some money being spent at the moment, as you may know, in the Helston area to look at the viability for Helston reconnecting. Therefore, it seems to me, when we're talking about the mid-Cornwall Metro, why can't we see it as a connection to the far southwest, or the far south? The Lizard Peninsula, Helston, offers 50,000 people eventually. We're heading towards 42. It could well be 50 in the not too distant future. So all I'm asking for is some recognition that this is an aspiration that is worthy of future consideration, which may take many decades. After all, Derek Thomas, our MP, actually is working hard to support that with the Department for Transport. And I'm sorry to go on a bit, but I feel we've still got this incredible dichotomy in Cornwall Council towards car drivers. We have this huge investment at St Earth for this wonderful car park, and we've got the A30 being dualled, yet at the same time we're talking about this modal shift and moving people away from their cars. And I think the majority, I know the majority of people in Cornwall value the importance of having what used to be called a personal transport unit, a PTU. Now, whether that's electric or a combustion engine, and obviously in the next 50 years it's been more likely to be electric, then I think there needs to be a greater recognition that car drivers have a place within our duchy. My last point is, unless we want to keep these people using their cars, we need to have far more park and ride in Truro. And I think that more work, personally, I think should be done on the Truro South park and ride, which doesn't exist, so that residents in Penryn, Falmouth and Helston could use a park and ride. Because I'm being criticised for not using a park and ride, where coming from Helston, it would be absolutely ridiculous to go to Langdarf or to Waitrose. If it was for me, I have to come that way. So I think I've covered my main points, but I do think that cycleways around Cornwall, like a good pathway around the coast, is something we should also be working towards as well, to attract people to be more physical. I fully agree, people need to do more exercise. There is the dichotomy there as well, which I fully support. Sorry to bang on, but there's a few points there to reflect on. But thank you, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Mike, and I'll try and pick up as many of those points as I can. In terms of a launch before the G7, simple answer is no. The reason is that we haven't yet got the confirmed regulations through from the government about what is required for a spaceport. We're expecting that in March, and until we've got that and we've met that, then we won't be able to do a launch. Having said that, I was in contact with Virgin Orbit last Sunday after they'd had that successful deployment of satellites into space. It really went well. And I mentioned G7 and they said they're looking to try and do something around that. So what that will be, I don't know at this stage, but they're very aware of the success and the importance of G7 and how that's going to impact on Cornwall and what small part they could play in that. The Helston Railway, I've been down there, I've visited it, I've met the team. We are working with them at the moment to try and become the statutory body to take on 3 key bridges, which I understand if we don't do that, there's no way that the railway line can expand. So that's work in progress. So I'm not ruling out Helston. What I said was that Network Rail, from their perspective, are focusing on their existing network before they look any further. But if we can secure those bridges, that will give us a way forward going in the future. Car driving, there's always going to be a place, I think, for a personal transport unit, if you like to call a car that, in Cornwall. I think the aim, because it's our rural nature, I think the aim is to try and make sure that there are alternatives. And one of the reasons why we put the park and ride is so that you can keep your PTU journey to as short a distance as possible before you can get onto some sort of effective public transport.
Agreed.
And I think I've already covered with Councillor Dyer the park and ride situation from Falmouth. We are looking at that, and it could well be that the park and ride is as far out as Falmouth, and it could be a park and rail rather than a park and ride with a bus.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Very thorough answers. Much appreciated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Brown, there are no more questions.
Well, thank you very much for that, and I hope it's been useful. And thank you all for your time. And if anybody thinks of anything, then please let me know, and I will circulate for all members the update on Highways England's plans for the A38. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're very welcome.